I froze when I heard a tiny voice say, "Mister, don't move. You're bleeding. Really bad." When I turned my head, I saw this kid, must have been 8 years old, drop her beat-up backpack on the gravel and run toward me like she had no fear at all. Her name was Maya Rodriguez. A little thing, messy hair, scratched-up sneakers, backpack with one broken zipper. Before I even understood what was happening, she was kneeling next to me on the ground beside my wrecked Harley. I was wearing my leather vest, patches all over it. A winged skull on the back. The name of my club stitched across the top. Hell's Angels. Those patches are usually enough to make grown men cross the street and pretend they didn't see you. But this kid, she didn't care about any of that. All she saw was the blood. My vision kept fading in and out, and I could feel the pain shooting through my leg. The bone was pushing hard against the denim, wrong angle, wrong everything. I knew without even looking that it was bad. Real bad. I could taste blood in my mouth, too. There was a deep cut across my forehead, and warm red streaks were sliding down my face, dripping right onto the angel patch on my chest. "Kid," I croaked, barely getting the words out. "Get out of here, it's not safe." But she didn't listen. Instead, she leaned right over me and pushed her small hands against the wound on my head. Her little pink jacket sleeve soaked through instantly, turning a dark, ugly red. "I'm not leaving you," she told me like it was the most obvious decision in the world. "If I leave, you'll die." I swear to God, that moment hit me harder than the crash. The sun was cooking that stretch of Route 9 outside Bakersfield, California. She told me later she had been walking home from school, the shortcut through the old industrial area. Her mom worked late at 2 different jobs, and her older brother stayed after school for football practice. She knew the route by memory. Past the abandoned warehouses, follow the chain-link fence, then 3 more blocks to her apartment. She said she heard the crash from 2 blocks away, tires screeching, metal crunching, then silence. Most kids would have bolted in the opposite direction. Not Maya. "Mom says when someone needs help, you help," she told me. "That's what good people do." So she ran toward the accident. Now she was kneeling in shattered glass and oily pavement, not caring about her ruined school clothes, not caring about the mess, and using her own jacket to stop a stranger from bleeding out. "What's your name?" she asked me, trying to keep me awake like she'd seen on TV. "My name's Maya. I'm 8. What's your name?" I blinked until her face came back into focus. "Reaper," I muttered. "They call me Reaper." She stared at me with those big brown eyes. "That sounds scary, but you don't look scary right now. You look hurt." I tried to laugh, but it just turned into coughing. "You're smart, kid. Too smart to be helping someone like me." "Why?" she asked, glancing at my vest again, trying to piece together what the patches meant. "Because of your jacket?" I felt my hand move toward the leather vest, barely. "These patches, they mean I'm dangerous." I forced the words out. "Your mom probably told you to stay away from guys like me." She thought about it for a second. "Mom says there are bad people out there," she answered. "But Mom also says when somebody's hurt, you help. Even if they look scary." Her voice didn't shake that time. She meant every word. I felt my eyes sting. "Your mom raised you right, kid." She looked up and scanned the road, desperate. No cars, no people, just the heat, the broken motorcycle, and us. We were completely alone. There weren't any cars, no people, Just rows of empty warehouses with busted windows and a rusted old phone booth 2 blocks down that looked like it hadn't worked since the 90s. The kid, Maya, looked around and made up her mind. "I'm going to get help," she said. "But you have to promise me you won't die while I'm gone." I tried to joke, but my voice came out rough and thin. "Kid, I can't promise that." "Yes, you can." Her voice cracked. It wasn't loud, but it was sharp, like panic sharpening the edges. "You have to. I'm going to run fast and call 911 and come right back. But you need to stay alive. Promise." Something in her eyes made it impossible to brush her off. She believed in me with this fierce, unshakable certainty I didn't deserve. I lifted the only hand that still worked and stuck out my pinky. "Pinky promise," I whispered. "I'll try." She hooked her tiny pinky around mine like we'd just sealed a sacred contract. Then she pulled her backpack off her shoulder, opened her homework folder, and gently pressed it against the cut on my forehead. "Hold this tight," she instructed. "Push down. I'll be right back." And then she took off, running faster than I thought such small legs could move. The phone booth looked like something out of a forgotten movie. Graffiti everywhere, rust climbing up the metal frame, the receiver dangling by a single wire. But when she lifted it, she heard a dial tone. Her hands were shaking so badly she misdialed twice before finally getting through. 911, what's your emergency?" "A man crashed his motorcycle," she blurted out. "He's bleeding really bad, and his leg is broken, and he's by the old warehouses on Route 9 near Miller Street, and you have to come now." "Okay, sweetheart, stay calm. How old are you?" 8, she said, almost annoyed. "But that doesn't matter. He's dying. Send an ambulance." "We're sending help right now. Are you safe? Is someone with you?" "I'm alone, he's alone, and you have to hurry." She slammed the receiver down and sprinted back. I was still conscious when she returned. Barely. I had done exactly what she told me, kept her homework folder pressed to my forehead. It was soaked through, pages stuck together with blood. She dropped down beside me, breathless. "I called 911, she said. "They're coming. You kept your promise." "So far," I murmured. My voice sounded weaker. "Good kid. Brave kid." "I'm not brave," she whispered. "I'm scared." Her eyes filled, and my heart twisted harder than the crash ever could. "What if you die before they get here?" I squeezed her hand. "Then you still did everything right." I blinked slowly. "What's your last name?" "Maya. Maya Rodriguez." "Why?" "So I don't forget. Need to thank you proper if I coughed, and blood flecked my lip. "If you make it." She held my hand with both of hers, gripping tight. "You promised." And somewhere in the distance I heard sirens. Faint at first, then louder, closer. I'd never been so relieved in my life. The paramedics appeared in a blur of uniforms and fast-moving hands. They checked my vitals, started an IV, secured my neck brace. They tried to nudge her aside, but I tightened my grip on her hand. "She stays," I growled, teeth clenched. "She's my angel." The medics traded looks, but didn't argue. When they loaded me onto the stretcher, Maya walked right beside me, still holding my hand. "You're going to be okay," she told me. "The doctors will fix you." I looked at her, eyelids heavy. "Kid, I'm already better. You already saved me." At the ambulance, one of the paramedics gently pried my hand free from hers. "You did real good, sweetheart," he told her. "What you did today saved his life." The doors closed, the siren wailed, and the ambulance drove off. She stood in the middle of the empty road, covered in my blood, backpack ruined, jacket destroyed. And for the first time in her young life, she understood something adults spend decades searching for. That feeling of knowing you mattered. Later, I found out what happened after the ambulance pulled away. A police officer showed up on the scene a couple minutes after I was taken. He crouched down beside Maya, speaking soft and careful, the way adults talk to kids when they know something big just happened. "You okay, honey? What you did was incredibly brave. Let's get your mom on the phone, all right?" Maya just nodded. The adrenaline was gone, and you could see exhaustion settling into her tiny shoulders. The officer walked her toward his cruiser, one slow step at a time. She turned back to look at the wrecked Harley, the blood-stained asphalt, the exact spot where she held my life together with her hands, and whispered, "Stay alive, Mr. Reaper. Please, stay alive." 20 minutes later, her mom, Carmen Rodriguez, rushed into the police station. She'd left work early for the first time in years, still wearing her grocery store uniform, name tag crooked from running. The second she saw Maya sitting on a bench eating a cookie, Carmen practically collapsed with relief. "Mija!" she cried out, pulling Maya into her arms, switching from Spanish to English in a single breath. "They told me there was an accident, that you were covered in blood." "I'm okay, Mama," Maya mumbled into her shirt. "It wasn't my blood." The officer walked over and cleared his throat gently. "Mrs. Rodriguez, your daughter saved a man's life today. Motorcycle wreck on Route 9, bad one. Head trauma, broken leg, internal bleeding. She kept him alive until paramedics arrived." Carmen pulled back and stared at Maya like she was hearing a language she'd never learned. "You did what?" "He was hurt, Mama. Really hurt. I just remembered what you always tell me. Help people." "I also said stay safe," Carmen blurted, fear sharpening her words. "You could have been hurt. What if the driver came back? What if—" "Mrs. Rodriguez," the officer interrupted softly. "I understand you're scared, but the man your daughter helped is Reaper, the president of the Hells Angels, Central California. If she hadn't stopped, he wouldn't have survived. The medic said she saved his life." Carmen went pale. "Hells Angels? You helped a gang member?" "He's not a gang member," Maya whispered. "He's a person, and he was bleeding." That simple truth just hung there in the air. Nobody could argue with it. The officer added, "The hospital called. He's in surgery but stable. He asked about Maya before they put him under. Wanted to make sure she was safe." Carmen drove her home in silence, both hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Maya stared out the window, watching the city blur past. She didn't feel scared, just changed. Like she'd crossed a line most people never see. Not at 8 years old. At home, Carmen made her shower immediately. She tried to wash the blood out of Maya's jacket, scrubbing until her hands hurt. The stains wouldn't budge. Finally, she threw the jacket in the trash. She sat at the kitchen table, head in her hands. Maya came out in clean pajamas, dripping hair, eyes unsure. "Mama, are you mad at me?" Carmen looked up, eyes red and tired. "No, mija. I'm not mad. I'm terrified. I'm proud. I'm everything at once. You're only 8, and you did something grown men would never have the guts to do." "He would have died," Maya whispered. "I know." Carmen opened her arms, and Maya climbed into her lap, even though she was really too big for that now. "You did the right thing," Carmen said softly, "but you scared me half to death." They stayed like that for a long time. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept seeing my eyes, The way I looked at her when I called her my angel. Nobody had ever used that word for her before. She was just Maya, a kid who sometimes forgot her homework, sometimes fought with her brother, sometimes got B's on spelling tests. But for one moment on a broken stretch of road, she mattered. The next morning, everything looked normal. Carmen cooked scrambled eggs. Her brother Diego complained about math. But nothing was the same anymore. Not for her. Not for me. The next morning, while Maya and her family were having breakfast, the TV played the morning news in the background. Nothing special, just another day starting. Then they heard it. At first it sounded like distant thunder, a low, rolling vibration coming from every direction at once. The rumble kept growing, deeper and louder, until the windows rattled and the dishes inside the cupboards clinked together like wind chimes. Maya's brother Diego ran to the window. "Holy—" He stopped himself just in time. "Mom, you gotta see this." Carmen walked over, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and looked outside. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Dios mío!" Maya scrambled up onto the couch so she could see too. The entire street outside their small apartment building was packed with motorcycles. Not 3, not 10. At least 100 Harleys. Chrome shining like mirrors, leather seats lined up in perfect formation. And beside every bike stood a man wearing a leather vest. The same patches Maya had seen on me. Hell's Angels. They weren't shouting. They weren't revving the engines. They just stood there, silent, waiting. Like an army of steel and loyalty. Neighbors peeked out from balconies and porches, phones lifted, whispering things like, "Oh my God, who are they here for?" Carmen grabbed Maya's shoulder. "Stay inside, don't go near the windows." And then, a knock at the front door. Firm, but surprisingly polite. Carmen moved toward it, but Diego got there first, chest puffed out with teenage courage. The second he opened it, that courage evaporated. 6 bikers stood in the doorway, each one built like a brick wall and wearing the same patch as mine. The man in front, tall, gray beard, eyes that looked like he'd lived through 10 lifetimes, slowly removed his sunglasses. "Mrs. Rodriguez," he said. "My name is Bull. I'm the vice president of the Central California chapter. We're here to see Maya." Carmen stepped in front of her daughter. "Why?" Bull's face softened in a way people wouldn't believe unless they saw it. "Because yesterday, she saved our president's life. We don't forget something like that. Ever." Another biker, younger, tattoos down both arms, added quietly, "We got word from the hospital. Reaper made it out of surgery. Doc said if he'd been left alone another 10 minutes, he wouldn't be here. Your daughter gave him those 10 minutes. Carmen's hand shook where she held the door. "I'm glad he's okay, but we don't want any trouble." "Yes, ma'am," Bull said gently. "We're not here to bring trouble. We're here to show respect. May we speak to Maya?" Maya slipped past her mom before Carmen could stop her. "I'm Maya." Every one of those hardened men looked at her. This tiny 8-year-old girl in her school clothes. And their expressions changed. Not fear, not pity. Respect. Bull knelt down so they were eye level. "You stayed with Reaper when others might have walked away. You held his hand. You kept him alive. You're 8 years old, and you showed more courage than grown men twice my size." "Is he really okay?" Maya asked. "For real?" "He's alive because of you," Bull said. He reached into his vest and pulled out a small embroidered patch. Not the club's death head logo. This was different. A silver wing with red stitching that read, Little angel. Reaper wanted you to have this, Bull explained. It's custom, made just for you. It means you're under our protection. Forever. I don't understand, Maya whispered. A third biker stepped forward, voice rough but steady. It means you're family now. If you ever need anything, you call us. Nobody messes with you, ever. Bull handed Carmen a card. My direct number, day or night. Your daughter is one of us now. That isn't a threat. That's a promise. She saved one of ours. So we protect one of hers. That's the code. Carmen stared down at the little silver wing, then back at the street filled with motorcycles. For the first time, she saw something she hadn't expected. Not danger. Honor. Her voice shook as she spoke. Thank you for checking on her and for telling us he's okay. Bull stood, nodded once, respectful, not dramatic. We'll let you get back to your morning. They filed out quietly, and the sea of bikes roared back to life, the sound rolling like thunder as they rode away. Bull had said something else before he left, something Carmen didn't fully understand at the time. Ma'am, that patch she's holding? That's not just cloth. That's a promise from all of us. She's protected. Then the bikers walked back toward their motorcycles. People all over the neighborhood had their phones out, filming like it was some kind of parade or UFO landing. They whispered, pointed, stared. And Maya just stood in the doorway of that apartment, holding the patch like it was something priceless, watching a bunch of men who looked like trouble treat her like she was the rarest thing on earth. One of the younger guys paused before climbing onto his Harley. He turned back, lifted his chin, and called out, "You're my hero, kid. You're all our hero." Then it happened. All at once, they fired up their engines. The sound shook the air, not loud, not chaotic, powerful, like thunder, except you could feel it in your bones. They rode away in a perfect formation, a flow of chrome and leather rolling down that quiet neighborhood street. They didn't leave behind noise. They left behind a memory, and a little girl who would never be ordinary again. Diego just stared at his sister like he'd never seen her before. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Carmen pulled Maya close, hugging her so tight the patch pressed between them. Her daughter, her brave, stubborn girl, was safe, protected, and somehow connected to the most feared motorcycle club in America. In the weeks after the accident, everything changed. Not dramatically, but in small, surprising ways. At school, Maya became that kid from the news. Local reporters showed her picture on TV. 8-year-old saves motorcycle club president kids who used to ignore her suddenly wanted to sit with her at lunch. They asked 1,000 questions. Were you scared? Did you cry? Did the bikers really come to your house? But Maya didn't enjoy telling the story. The moment on the road, the blood, the fear, the pinky promise, felt private, sacred. Not something you repeat just because people want to hear it. When her teacher assigned an essay about courage, Maya didn't write about bikers or sirens or news cameras. She wrote about fear, how she was shaking, how she wanted to run, and how sometimes doing the right thing hurts. Mrs. Wilson wrote a note at the bottom of the paper. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act anyway. You understand that better than most adults. The little angel patch stayed on her dresser in a frame. Carmen wanted to put it away, worried about what people might think. But Maya refused. It's mine. I earned it. And she had. 3 weeks after the crash, Bull called. Maya, Reaper's getting released tomorrow. He'd like to see you, if your mama agrees. Carmen's first instinct was a hard no, but then she remembered how those men stood outside their home, not with threats, but with respect. "I'm coming too," she finally said. The hospital room was filled with flowers, cards, balloons. Some from California, some from chapters in states Maya had never even heard of. I was sitting up when they walked in, leg in a cast, head stitched up, but awake and alert. The second I saw her, I smiled. There's my angel. She walked up to me slowly, shy now that there wasn't blood and chaos in the air. Without the crash, without the fear, I must have looked different to her. Less like a dangerous biker, more like somebody's grandpa who'd just had a bad day. "Hi, Mr. Reaper," she whispered. "Are you feeling better?" I reached out my hand. She placed hers in mine, same tiny hand that once held my life together. "Because of you, I'm still here," I told her. "That's not a small thing, kid." "You don't owe me anything," she replied. "I just didn't want you to die." That one hit me right in the chest. "You got raised right, kid," I said, then turned to her mom. "Ma'am, thank you for letting her help me. I know people don't always like us or understand us, but I gave my word." I squeezed Maya's hand gently. In my world, nobody, and I mean nobody, will ever lay a hand on your daughter or your family. Not ever. I looked Carmen in the eyes. "That's not talk. That's oath level." Carmen nodded slowly, unsure, still cautious, but grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. "I hope we never need to use that protection." "So do I told her. My voice wasn't loud anymore. It was soft, honest. Then I turned back to Maya. "I've got something for you." I reached into a bag beside the hospital bed and pulled out a tiny leather jacket. Not a toy one, real leather. Soft black, handmade, with one silver wing stitched on the back. No skulls, no club patches, just 2 words. "Little Angel." "For when you're older," I said. "This isn't about the club. It's just a reminder. You were brave when it counted." Maya ran her fingertips over the wing like it was something fragile. "Thank you." "No," I said, feeling my throat tighten. "Thank you. You gave me a second chance at life. I plan on using it better this time." We talked for a while. Nothing heavy. School, weather, the stuff normal people talk about when they're trying not to cry in front of each other. When she finally stood to leave, I stopped her gently. "You ever need anything at all, you call Bull. Day or night. If you're scared, hurt, or just need someone who knows what it feels like to face fear and not run, call. You got 100 brothers now." She stepped forward and hugged me, careful of my injuries. "Get better, Mr. Reaper." "I already am, Angel." 6 months passed. Life looked normal again. Almost. That little leather jacket hung in her closet, waiting for the day it would finally fit. Every once in a while, Maya would touch the wing on the back, just to remind herself it wasn't a dream. And quietly, life around her started changing. When a group of guys tried to pressure her cousin Diego into joining something stupid, a conversation happened behind closed doors with a man nobody recognized. They never bothered Diego again. When Carmen's car died on the side of the road one night, Bull showed up with a tow truck in 20 minutes. He refused to take money, made sure they got home safely, and drove off without a word. When Maya's school needed money for the playground, an anonymous donation appeared. The Little Angel Fund, $10,000. Sometimes I visited too, still limping, walking with a cane. We'd get milkshakes and talk about life. I didn't brag about the club, didn't glamorize anything. I talked about loyalty, respect, becoming a better man. You taught me something back there, I told her once. Courage doesn't come from patches or engines. It comes from your heart. You didn't run. I'm trying to live like that now. And Maya learned that heroes don't always look clean or safe. Sometimes heroes have scars. Sometimes courage is an 8-year-old kneeling beside a stranger in the dark. On the 1-year anniversary of the accident, the bikes came back. But this time they didn't bring intimidation. They brought backpacks for kids, food, toys, scholarships. They filled the community center parking lot. Bull stood with Maya beside him and spoke into a microphone. A year ago, a kid showed us what real courage looks like. She didn't see a biker. She saw a human being. Today, we honor that by protecting this community, the way she protected one of ours. People who once feared us softened. Reaper stood behind her, stronger now, cane in hand. "You did this," I murmured to her. "No," she said. "I just didn't want you to die." "That," I replied, "is what changed everything." Time kept moving. Years passed. Maya turned 13. At her school leadership assembly, she walked to the podium wearing the little angel jacket. It finally fit. The single silver wing shimmered under the lights. "When I was 8, she began, "I found a man hurt on the road. I was scared, but I stayed. Not because I was fearless. I was terrified. I stayed because walking away felt wrong. That moment changed both of us and more people than I ever expected." She talked about compassion, about choosing to help even when your hands are shaking, about how courage spreads. When she finished, the entire auditorium stood and clapped. At the back of the room, leaning on my cane, I watched. I had never been more proud. Afterward, we walked outside together. On my motorcycle seat rested a helmet, her size. "You're 13 now," I said with a grin. "Old enough for your first ride, if your mom says yes." Carmen hesitated, then nodded. "Bring her back safe." "Always." Maya climbed onto the bike behind me, jacket zipped, hands gripping my vest. The engine roared to life, not threatening anymore. This time it sounded like freedom. We rode into the sunlight, a biker and a girl. Proof that kindness can rewrite lives. Because sometimes bravery isn't loud. Sometimes bravery is simply staying when running feels easier. And sometimes, family isn't the one you're born into. Family is the one brave moment leads you to.